And hello ladies and gentlemen, and today, welcome back to another AP World History Modern AMSCO reading, where today we are reading Chapter 2.4, Trans-Saharan Trade Routes. And anyways though, ladies and gentlemen, that translates to, let's dive right into the video. Quote, "From Timbuktu, I sailed down the Nile on a small boat hollowed out of a single piece of wood. I went on to Gaga, which is a large city on the Nile. The buying and selling of its inhabitants is done with cowrie shells, and the same is the case at Mali. I stayed there about a month, and then set out in the direction of Tagada by land with a large caravan of merchants from Gahadamis." End quote. Ibn Battuta, 1304 to 1353. Essential question. What were the causes and effects of trans-Saharan trade, and how did the growth of empires influence trade and communication? While the East African coast had been fairly well populated for many centuries before the arrival of Islam, few societies had inhabited the Sahara Desert because its arid climate made it nearly impossible to farm. Though nomadic communities did conduct some trade across the Sahara, the volume of trade increased with the arrival of Muslim merchants in the 7th and 8th centuries. When empires such as Mali took over the area in the early 1200s, commerce expanded dramatically. As illustrated in the commentaries of Ibn Battuta, a Muslim scholar and explorer of the 14th century, merchants and traders used caravans to facilitate commerce. Africans traded gold, ivory, hides, and slaves for Arabs and Berber salt, cloth, paper, and horses. Trans-Saharan trade. The Sahara Desert is immense, occupying 3.6 million square miles, about the same size as China. Of that vast expanse of sand and rock, only about 800 square miles are oases, places where human settlement is possible because water from deep underground is brought to the surface, making land fertile. In some oases, the water comes from underground naturally. In others, humans have dug wells to access the water. Camels, saddles, and trade. Muslim merchants from Southwest Asia traveled across the Sahara on camels. Native to the Islamic heartland, Arabia, camels began to appear in North Africa in the 3rd century BCE. Accustomed to the harsh, dry climate of the Arabian desert, camels adapted well to living in the Sub-Sahara Desert. Compared to horses, camels can consume a large quantity of water at one time, over 50 gallons in 3 minutes, and not need more water for a long time. They began to replace horses and donkeys after 300 CE. As use of the camel spread, people developed as many as 15 types of camel saddles for different purposes. South Arabians developed a saddle in which the rider sits in the back of the hump, which makes riding easier because the rider can hold on to the hair of the hump. Northern Arabians developed a saddle for sitting on top of the hump, putting them high in the air, which gave them greater visibility in battles. Being near the head gave the rider the best possible control over the camel. However, the saddle that had the greatest impact on trade was one the Somalis in eastern Africa developed. They were semi-nomadic and needed to carry their possessions with them, so they designed a saddle for carrying loads up to 600 pounds. Without the development of this type of saddle, camels could not have been used to carry heavy loads of goods in trade. And as we can see here by this table, comparing pack animals, let's examine it. Animal, camel. Location, Northern Africa and Sub-Saharan West Africa. Benefits, able to travel long distances, can eat thorny plants and drink salty water found in deserts. Has long eyelashes that protect against desert winds. Only animal that can cross deserts. Does not spook easily. Can carry up to 600 pounds. Drawbacks. Requires high level of salt to stay healthy. Can be very aggressive and even vengeful. Cannot be controlled with a bit. Cannot be boarded in a stall. Animal. Ox. Location. Eurasia and the Americas. Benefits. Has high level of stamina, can pull heaviest loads, unlikely to stray or be stolen, can survive on local grazing, and tolerates various climates and diets. Drawbacks: move slowly compared to other pack animals, requires more water and food than any other pack animal. Animal: horse. Location: worldwide. Benefits: can run at high speeds, can be controlled with a bit, can be used in battle, and can adapt to most climates and terrains. Drawbacks: requires grain to keep fit, spooks easily, can be stolen easily, strays easily, less sure-footed than other pack animals, cannot tolerate high heat. Animal: llama. Location: Americas. Benefits: America maintains traction in mountains, has calm disposition, requires little water, adapts well to cold and mountainous climates. Drawbacks: cannot pull heavy loads, can carry less than other pack animals, cannot tolerate high heat. And now, back to the reading. The caravans that crossed the Sahara often had thousands of camels laden not only with goods to trade, but also with enough provisions, including fresh water, to last until the travelers could reach the next oasis. The people leading the caravans generally walked the entire way. The map on page 44 shows some of the main trade routes across the Sahara. Also, please note that page 44 is in one of the previous chapters, or in other words, Unit 1. If you'd like, you can check on that page or that reading in one of my previous videos in Unit 1, which I already covered. There were 7 north-south trade routes and 2 east-west trade routes. These put the people in sub-Saharan Africa in touch with an expanding number of cultures and trading partners. By the end of the 8th century CE, the trans-Saharan trade had become famous throughout Europe and Asia. Gold was the most precious commodity traded. West African merchants acquired the metal from the waters of the Senegal River near modern-day Senegal and Mauritania. Foreign traders came to West Africa seeking not only gold, but also ivory and slaves. In exchange, they bought salt, textiles, and horses. For more than 700 years, trans-Saharan trade brought considerable wealth to the societies of West Africa, particularly the kingdoms of Ghana and Mali. They also brought Islam, which spread into sub-Saharan Africa as a result. West African Empire expansion, and before we talk about that, let's look at this image, which is a satellite image of the expansive Sahara, as shown above the title I just read. Back to the reading. West African Empire expansion. By the 12th century, wars with neighboring societies had permanently weakened the Ghanaian state. See topic 1.5 or one of my previous videos in subject 1, which I had previously covered. In its place arose several new trading societies, the most powerful of which was Mali. North African traders had introduced Islam to Mali in the 9th century. Mali's riches. The government of Mali profited from the gold trade, but also taxed nearly all other trade entering West Africa. In that way, it became even more prosperous than Ghana had been. Most of Mali's residents were farmers who cultivated sorghum and rice. However, the great cities of Timbuktu and Gao accumulated the most wealth and developed into centers of Muslim life in the region. Timbuktu, in particular, became a world-renowned center of Islamic learning. By the 1500s, books created and sold in Timbuktu brought prices higher than most other goods. Expanding roles of states. The growth in trade and wealth gave rise to the need to administer and maintain it. For example, rulers needed to establish a currency whose value is widely understood. In Mali, the currency was cowrie shells, cotton cloth, gold, glass beads, and salt. Rulers also needed to protect both the trade routes and the areas where their currencies were made or harvested, or their other trade resources were produced. Sometimes empires expanded their reach to take over resource-rich areas. They did so with military forces, well provisioned with horses and iron weapons brought with the tax revenue. With each expansion, more people were drawn into the empire's economy and trade networks, bringing more people in the touch with distant cultures. Mali's founding ruler, Sundiata, became the subject of legend. His father had ruled over a small society in West Africa in what today is Guinea. When his father died, rival groups invaded, killing most of the royal family and capturing the throne. They did not bother to kill Sundiata because the young prince was crippled and was not considered a threat. In spite of his injury, he learned to fight and became so feared as a warrior that his enemies forced him into exile. His time in exile only strengthened him and his allies. In 1235, Sundiata, the Lion Prince, returned to the kingdom of his birth, defeated his enemies, and reclaimed the throne for himself. Sundiata's story made him beloved within his kingdom, but he was also an astute and capable ruler. Most scholars believe he was a Muslim and used his connections with others of his faith to establish trade relations with North African and Arab merchants. Sundiata cultivated a thriving gold trade in Mali. Under his steady leadership, Mali's wealth grew tremendously. Mansa Musa. In the 14th century, Sundiata's grandnephew, Mansa Musa, brought some fame to the region. However, Mansa Musa was better known for his religious leadership than for his political or economic acumen. A devout Muslim, Mansa Musa began a pilgrimage in 1324 to Mecca, Islam's holiest city. His journey, however, was unlike that of any ordinary pilgrim. Mali's prosperity allowed him to take an extravagant caravan to Arabia, consisting of 100 camels, thousands of slaves and soldiers, and gold to distribute to all the people who hosted him along his journey. His pilgrimage displayed Mali's wealth to the outside world. Mansa Musa's visit to Mecca deepened his devotion to Islam. Upon his return, he established religious schools in Timbuktu, built mosques in Muslim trading cities, and sponsored those who wanted to continue their religious studies elsewhere. Though most West Africans continued to hold on to their traditional beliefs, Mansa Musa's reign deepened the support for Islam in Mali. However, in fewer than 100 years after Mansa Musa's death, the Mali kingdom was declining. By the late 1400s, the Songhai kingdom had taken its place as the powerhouse in West Africa. Following processes like those Mali had gone through, Songhai became larger and richer than Mali. In spite of Mali's fall, Mansa Musa's efforts to strengthen the Islam in West Africa succeeded. The religion had a prominent place in the region today. As we can see here, there's a chart empires in Western Eurasia and Africa in the 13th century. Let's begin. Mali. Location, West Africa. Major city, Timbuktu. Peak years, 1200s to 1400s. Key figures, Sundiata, founder who built a strong trade network. Mansa Musa, political and religious leader. Legacy, connected West and North Africa through trade. Spread Islam in West Africa. Location, Aladonis, location, Spain. Major city, Cordoba. Peak years, 711 to 1492. Key figures, Ibn Rushd, Islamic legal scholar and philosopher. Maimonides, Jewish scholar of ethnics. Legacy, created vibrant, tolerant society. Preserved classical Greek learning. Byzantine Empire. Location, Middle East. Major city, Constantinople. Peak years, 330 to 1453. Key figures, Justinian, ruler, responsible for the body of civil law. Paracelsus shifted focus to the east. Legacy, fostered trade between Asia, Europe, and Africa. Carried on Roman legacy. Kievan Rus, location, Russia. Major city, Kiev. Peak years, 900s to 1200s. Key figures, Vladimir I, converted to Christianity in 9889. Yaroslav I codified the legal system. Legacy, developed first large civilization in Russia. Spread Christianity eastward. Key terms by theme. Government Sub-Saharan. Mali, Sundiata, Mansa Musa, Songhai Kingdom. Culture Islam. Timbuktu, Mecca. Economics, trade, Trans-Saharan trade. Environment, Africa, Sahara Desert, oases. Environment, Southwest Asia, Arabian Desert. Technology, pack animals, camel saddle. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today's episode of AP World History Readings. And honestly, again, one part I really liked in this was Sundiata, because honestly, it's a really interesting tale, you know? Hearing about a guy who was spared, yet came back and took revenge on the people who spared him, but also killed his family and stole his birthright, the thing that he was technically entitled to gaining as a form of his leadership. Because ultimately, it seems that during this, upon the father's death, that he was going to be the next heir, the one to rule afterwards. But it is truly interesting seeing that kind of story, because honestly, again, it's such an interesting story that, honestly, I would not mind seeing maybe some form of adaptation of it, honestly. You know, and maybe even I might try digging deeper into it myself. But that's just my thoughts. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit the like button, and remember to subscribe as well. You can always unsubscribe if it becomes an inconvenience, or you can also hit the notification bell to stay up to date on when I post more content. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, you have a amazing day, an amazing night as well, if you have that. I really don't know your time zones. After all, this is a video recording after all. And I really hope that you all stay safe, stay happy, and stay entertained as we have episode 2.5 coming right up in 10 to 5 seconds.